Hey, so I'm actually adding this on to the start of the video after I've done everything else because I want to get some footage after having gone through these tips in the video, and just having them in my head again fresh made me play so much better. So please go through, watch them, keep them in mind, and go and employ them. They genuinely work, I promise you. Alright, enjoy. Ladies and gents, welcome to the video. I'm GetGoodGuy. This is Battlefield 5 again. Yes, I have the absolute patience of a saint, and recently I've been making some videos about tips about how to get better at the game, but not super advanced stuff. Instead, I've been focusing on the very basic, simplistic things, laying them out so you guys can find easy ways to drastically improve at the game. That is, if you're average or less able, or just as very good reminders if you're more able. Now, I've done how to get more kills and less deaths and all that general play stuff. I've done how to improve your aim, and today we move on to movement, which I probably, when I think about it, that could have been worded better. But regardless, I don't script these videos anymore. Regardless, on we go. I'm not going to waste any time. Let's go straight into my 20 basic tips to massively improve your movement in Battlefield 5 and thus improve your survivability, your kills per minute, and your chances of winning the game. Tip number 1 is corner peeking. So way too many people stand in the open or stop still when they see someone or don't have cover or whatever it may be when they're going to enter into a gunfight, or even more importantly, just checking an area. Now, if you know someone is in a certain area or you think they're there, but you don't want to just simply expose yourself, do what you've been watching me do on screen. You can step in and out of a corner or a piece of cover and check that area with very small gaps in your view of it, but making it harder for you to be hit, making it so you're already moving back in if you happen to take damage. You're not relying on your own reactions and you're keeping the upper hand. And this works far better when you're using a weapon with a specialization on it that allows for faster strafing when aiming down sight, but of course you can do it without ADSing as well. Tip number 2 is use momentum. Use your actual movement to your advantage, whether it be passing through an area or mantling over things. If you mantle something from a standing start, you have zero momentum. You're going to be easier to hit. It's going to take you longer to do things. You won't have the momentum when you land on the other side. But if you've already got speed behind you, you can then take on these obstacles in a more flowing fashion and make it more difficult for you to be picked off. Try to avoid bumping into things and make the most of the movement that's available to you with momentum. Tip number 3 is give up on bad mantles. Now, I didn't really have a good way of showing this, but we all know that the game doesn't have great mantling. It's much better than Battlefield 1, but there are still occasions where you try to jump something on Battlefield 5 and it just won't do it. Look, if it's doing that and you're in a high pressure situation, don't spend too long trying to do it. If you have another option, do that. Don't get yourself killed trying to jump the same thing because the game won't let you do it. Keep in mind that the game doesn't always allow you to move in the way that you feel you should be able to, so do your best to mitigate the downsides of that and make the most of the upsides. Tip number 4 is slide jumping. Now, people that have watched my content for a while know I love to slide in this game. It's a core part of my movement. But it isn't just sliding, you can slide jump. If you get the timing right, towards the end of your slide, you can add a jump in and keep that momentum. Now, just imagine how hard that is for someone to hit. You can cover certain areas more easily, you can close gaps, all sorts of stuff. Make sure you're using the slide jump as part of your repertoire whenever it's viable. Tip number 5, windows beat doors, or at least sometimes they do. Think about it, if someone's camping in a building, they usually watch the door, and you just have to run through it. But with a window, you've got the element of surprise, they don't know which one to watch, there's usually multiple windows, and you actually mantle through it. You come through in an animation, which makes you harder to hit. You come through it at some kind of speed usually, especially if you run at it, as I mentioned before about momentum. This gives you the upper hand in clearing the room, rather than just walking or running in a door and getting picked off instantly. So if you get the opportunity, I promise you, windows beat doors a lot of the time. Just keep in mind, if someone's upstairs hiding from you, smashing through a window will make more noise than slowly opening a door and creeping in. Tip number 6, take the high ground. Now, this is just a good general rule anyway. Shooting down at people is easier most of the time, but there's something more to it. You know those times where you kind of ring around a rosing with someone, you know they're running one way, you're running the other, maybe a small piece of cover going round and round? Well, you don't have to take part in that. What catches a lot of people out, if you can mantle it fast enough, is by just getting on top of the cover. They're going round wondering if you're going left or right, you take that quick moment to get on top of it and shoot down at them on the other side. If you don't have the time to mantle it, don't get yourself shot by them just coming up behind you and picking you off. Tip number 7, move cover to cover. This is so basic. I've mentioned this before in other videos, but not enough people do it. Know where your next piece of cover is. Know what your exit strategy is. Move around the map looking for what cover you can take all the time. I never ever just run out in the open without a plan. I'm heading towards something and then on to the next thing, whether it be a building, a fortification, a log, a rock, a tree, keeping the edge of the map at my side to my back, always something, making sure I'm covered somehow and knowing how I can get out of that situation as long as I have the reaction time to do it. Tip number 8, use leaning. Now, I'm not a massive fan of the lean function in Battlefield 5 because I don't think it works all that well, but when it does, it can be very effective and it's something I'm trying to use more. I implore you to do the same. You can do it manually or auto leaning depending on your own settings. Go and check that out if you want to. But if you use the auto one, I do find it's a bit finicky. My tip would be to look directly at the corner, then aim down sight, and then usually it pops you around it. This is an alternative to corner peeking. I still prefer to corner peek in and out, but every now and again, I'll use the lean and it can be very, very good. So give it a shot, see what works for you. Tip number 9, head glitching. Now, I had someone mention this before when I talked about this. Head glitching has now just become a term for only really showing your head or part of it, rather than the old term of actually not being seen. Regardless, use them when you can. There are certain things around the map where you can only show a bit of your head and still cleanly look over it, as long as your gun doesn't clip into the cover itself and you end up shooting that, which can be very annoying, but try to commit them to memory where they are as you're going around. It makes you extremely hard to hit, whilst you can just easily aim for someone running around with their full body exposed. Ooh, saucy. No, we'll leave that in. Tip number 10, we're halfway there. Slide and shoot. Another one about sliding. Yep, very, very important. The general practice when you're running around is you got to run somewhere, then you see someone, then you can react, then you can aim down sight, then you can shoot. It gives the enemy a lot of time to try to land damage on you if they're prepared, but if you slide, you 1 can hold the element of surprise when you come around the corner or whatever it may be. You 2 don't need to wait for an animation to finish before you can aim, and you can 3 actually shoot while you're doing it. So you're harder to hit, and you're getting your damage out earlier, and you're not having to deal with transitioning through different stages of movement. You can do it all in one and drop the enemy. Tip number 11, jump shooting. Another way to make yourself harder to hit and take the advantage in the gunfight. Now, if you're on PC, this is nice and easy. You got lots of keybinds and a mouse in your other hand. On console, a little more tricky, because for most people, you've then got to move your thumb off the right stick to get to the jump button. But if you use an elite controller like me, or a Scuff, or a Battle Beaver if it's called that, whatever it may be, you can use the paddle on the back so you can jump and still aim. If not, you can go into the settings and you can change your jump button to a different one in the controller bindings if you so wish. Take some time getting used to that and you'll be able to jump while still aiming and be able to turn on people really quickly, get around corners with it. Lots of different techniques, but regardless, if you can't do that, you can still get used to just jumping corners and quickly getting your thumb back to the stick, as I did for years in Call of Duty. Give it a try. Tip number 12, sensitivity. Okay, so this isn't really a technique, but get the right sensitivity. I made this point as well in my aiming video, but it matters for movement too. If you're finding you're not able to traverse the map comfortably because you're overturning or underturning, you can't look around fast enough, all that kind of stuff, change your sensitivity. Get it higher if that's the case. But if you're finding it's moving around too much, making it too hard for you to be precise, lower the sensitivity. And don't worry about your aim in this one, because you can change your sensitivity for your aim down sight and for not being aim down sight. There's soldier sensitivity and soldier aim sensitivity. Tip number 13, use smoke. Look, it's all well and good you running around and having the momentum and being a parkour master, a ninja warrior, all that kind of stuff. But if you have smoke available and you're not using it when you're crossing dangerous areas, you're being a mug. You can use smoke on the medic class and the recon class. You can shield yourself from view. You can cross corridors. You can block off lines of sight. You can throw the smoke down and move into it and surprise people as they try to come through it the other way. Lots of things you can do with smoke. Start using it to your maximum advantage. Tip number 14, crouch running / walking. Another massively underused technique. Crouch running or walking can shield you from view more so when you're behind walls or running through fields, plus you make less noise, so you can sneak up on people more easily. It's surprising how little noise you actually make sometimes, especially in a game where a lot of people say the sound isn't great anyway, so you can really get behind people with this one, get some flanks going, surprise people, and as I keep mentioning, take the upper hand with a basic technique. Tip number 15, dive swimming. Do you know how easy you are to hit when you're just swimming through the water without diving? It is the easiest thing I've done ever since convincing your dad that I'm an African prince and I've got money for him. I just need his bank details. So by the way, if you could just speed him up on getting those to me, that'd be great. But you gotta dive swim, guys. Swim along, dive in a bit, stay down there, come up for air briefly, go back down. It makes you extremely hard to hit, it makes it very hard for people to even see that you're coming, and on something like Rotterdam, I use it to go all the way down the right side of the map when you spawn at one side, so that I can come up by the docks at the B flank and pick a load of people off. Barely anyone ever looks there, and when I'm dive swimming, they don't know I'm coming anyway. Tip number 16, create space. Look, if you've got a long range weapon and the enemy hasn't, or maybe hasn't, if you hear them coming, please back up. Please create a bit of space, a bit of separation to give yourself the advantage. You can do this again by moving cover to cover if you so wish and then popping out. It's very, very, very important. I can't stress this enough. Move around the map in a way that benefits the weapon you're using or what your own personal strengths are. And therefore tip number 17 is close gaps. The opposite. When you've got a close range weapon, close those gaps. Move elusively. Use slides. Use jumps. Crouch. Prone. Go cover to cover again. Use that smoke. Get as close to the enemy as you can with your close range weapon. Surprise them, or just simply leave them with no chance of killing you because their weapon doesn't suit the circumstance and yours does, and you force them into that situation. Tip number 18, jump for mantles. Basically, there are a few spots in this game where you can jump for mantles you wouldn't otherwise think you can get. So in a high pressure circumstance, you've got no other option, give it a try, see if you can jump and get into a window or something. Tip number 19, expect ladder fails. Look, in this game and BF1, ladders frequently throw you off. I don't know why, but they do. So if you can avoid using them in a spot where you might get shot, absolutely do. Only use them when it seems like it's safe. And then tip number 20 is better ladder technique. So if you do use a ladder and you're trying to sneak up on someone, you make noise when you climb them. If you just climb all the way up and there's not too much noise going on around the enemy, they're probably going to hear you. So what I do is I try to wait for explosions or gunfire, or I'll take maybe a couple of steps, go up a couple of rungs and stop. Then a couple more, then a bit more, and eventually get up to the top. So I've not made a consistent noise. Maybe the game hasn't actually made the noise, or only made the noise of one step, whatever it may be. That doesn't stand out to people as much, and you can get the kill, whereas before, you would have just died. And with that, those are my 20 tips to massively improve and upgrade your movement in Battlefield 5, and I really hope you find them useful. Let me know in the comments below which one you're most looking forward to trying out, and let me know if any you have that I haven't included in my list. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leaving a like is massive for me. It really helps the channel to grow. If you're new here, please do consider subscribing and maybe turning on notifications for the massive amount of content I've been putting out and will continue to put out. And all the links to my social media, including Patreon, can be found in the description and my pinned comment. Here is the Board of Awesome for the epic people who already support me on Patreon. They're all absolute heroes and I love them all deeply and of course, often. If you want to join them on the Board of Awesome, the link to the Patreon page is in the description and my pinned comment. And with that all said, I'm GetGoodGuy and I'll see you next time. Laters. Well, why don't they try to fix the system up a bit? Keep South African servers populated. Perhaps put up a message to educate people, or implore people to use the browser for their region or whatever. Well, I have no good answer, as usual, when it comes to Battlefield 5. Because this is the same company that, as we've learned recently, can't add the 4 temporary modes